in front of me with regard to South Africa portraying itself as a champion on a global level. But domestically, there are many questions that are being raised, particularly with regard to women, with regard to peace and security. And when we look at South Africa and judging the South African government or the administration, it is not only about uh, what South Africa is achieving globally, but how is South Africa being judged or measured locally in terms of results? Now, there are two issues here. We are in a difficult time. We are feeling very, very vulnerable as a result of COVID-19, the uncertainty. But at the same time, one of the major talking points in South Africa has been violence, which has been unleashed on women and children with brutality.
Yes, that's true. But we must remember that gender-based violence in South Africa is not a new issue. It's been going on for years that we've, like as civil society, we've been calling for government to take action. And if you remember correctly, in 2018, President Cyril Ramaphosa even established the gender-based violence task team. And, and we waited 2019 to see what will happen. And then they had the GBV hotline and stuff like that. So the issue with South Africa is if we look at how South Africa performs on a global stage, and we take it into consideration that this is the third time that we a member of the UN Security Council, right? And in that time, South Africa has always pushed for women, for the women, peace and security agenda. They've always push that, women should be heard, women need to be decision makers, women need to be protected. If you look at our resolution that we championed last year, 2493, where we said we should stop just talking about this agenda, we must start implementing it. And so they were pushing for the implementation of this without us having actually our own national action plan. So the article, and that's a bit of a background surrounding the article. And so what we did is Cabinet finally endorsed a national action plan. So if I can explain Resolution 1325, just to give a context to your listeners, right? 1325 recognizes that women are disproportionately affected by conflict. And because of that, women need to be part of peacemaking processes so that we can have their voices included in the decision making. And so that is what happened 20 years ago. But what we also then realized with South Africa when we had to develop our national action plan is we have to look internally, because we can't send out troops that are gender sensitive, looking in terms of violence against women in conflict settings, and then at home, our women are suffering. So that's why our national action plan is different compared to other countries where we look both internally and we looked externally as well.
Well, Liezelle, I think what is important is each country has got its own dynamics that is playing out. And when one looks at the resolution that was passed, Resolution 1325, and it obviously addresses a global, or I would say a more generic scenario when it comes to these particular issues. But with each country being unique, and when you speak about action plans and how these action plans have actually been introduced in other parts around the world, we need to look at South Africa. We need to look at our dynamics internally, how they've been playing out, because the circumstances surrounding the dynamics of violence against gender-based violence and violence against children, these are very, very different for a country like South Africa.
You're very right. What happened with South Africa, and that's why I said we had to look internally as well. South Africa has always been classified as one of the worst countries when it comes to GBV in terms of states for a country not in conflict. I think we rated the highest when it came to GBV. And especially that's why you would see it was always said South Africa is at war with its women. South Africa always had that dynamic. But if we take it from a gender-based analysis as well, we see that South Africans also then tend to be violent men towards men. South Africans tend to be violent generally across the board, and we tend to be very angry. So there's a lot of things that we can link to our past and how we've not dealt with our past, and then how this manifests itself now. That we see we always have a violent response. You can take it from road rage all the way across into the home. How do we respond to conflict in South Africa? So yes, we've not had a civil war, but when we take it down and we look at our communities and see that, then we would ask our questions: are our communities safe? Can people go out at night and just sit together? Do women feel comfortable to walk alone? Those everyday peace indicators, if we have to look at them, South Africa then is at a state of negative peace. So we're not in active conflict, but we're not in positive peace. We're actually in a state of negative peace. When we look at our homicide rates and all of those other things, it perpetuates a country that is actually internally striving and fighting and being violent.
Exactly. And I think the other important aspect that one needs to take note of, Lizelle, is by championing a resolution like a resolution 1325, and more importantly, committing to this resolution. The key issue or the critical issue here is it must not be seen as just repeating empty rhetoric, but
Mm.
it needs a plan that is effective, that needs to be embraced in totality by government and also South African society as a whole.
It is true, and that's a nice thing about our plan. It has been endorsed. We don't know what the final one looks like. They're saying it will be launched in October. But from what happened with this plan, it was actually 3 years of civil society engagement, government engagement, academia engagement that developed this plan. And what makes our plan unique is we're focusing on implementation, where there's clear tasks assigned to each government department relating to an issue. And then to say, what do we do? And civil society then has that oversight role. But as you know, in South Africa, we're very good with policy developments. We're very good with identifying our problems. Oh, we can even tell you what the root causes are of our problems. But when it comes to implementation, and this is where the real test will come in for this implementation plan, is will we be able to implement it, and will we be able to see results? And that is obviously up to government. Will they give a budget for it? Will they actually promote it? Will they be able to, broadcast it to the whole of South Africa to understand it? Because parallel to this process, we have the GBV strategy that was also launched in our country. And if you ask people, and if you ask women or any person, do you know about this strategy? The answer will probably be no. So how often do our government develop these wonderful things that you hear on when you're part of these global conversations? Then you hear about these strategies and you hear about these things, and you're like, but as a South African, I don't know about it. I've not seen it. And so the assumption is always that, yes, South Africa, people can go onto the internet, people can do all of that, but most people don't even know where to go to navigate all of these things from government. So the real proof will be, will they be able to raise awareness on this issue, on the National Action Plan and the GBV strategy? And will we then start seeing them implementing what was suggested from society?
Well, certainly, Lizelle. And again, the important point here is the total disconnect
Mm,
between what South Africa says globally and what is actually being done on a local
mm,
level. And as you correctly pointed out, we're good at writing policy. We can write volumes, we can write encyclopedias as far as policy is concerned. The key issue here is two things: implementation and also accountability, because I
mm.
think this is lacking as far as accountability goes.
It is true in terms of accountability as well. Not only in terms of the perpetrators, right? But in terms of accountability to government. When you say you're going to do something, why don't you do it? Why don't, if you say by 2021, we will have A, B, and C in place? We don't go back and say, why is it not in place? What was done to prevent it? How can we then get it in place and stuff like that? So that is the big thing. What we also need then, when it comes to the perpetrators of violence, we need to have a policy in place, and I think that is what the GBV strategy wants to do, that the crime, the punishment fits the crime. It's always been known within our gender circles, like if a woman gets killed, the sentence is 5 years. If a woman kills a man, the sentence is life. There's always been that type of thing within our patriarchal society, that women must know their place. They must know where they fit in. And so sometimes the crime is not considered as bad. You understand? So all of those mindsets and shifts must take place in our society, where we focus on equality, where we focus on working towards breaking those negative and harmful social practices that we take as normal. They're not normal, they were socially constructed, they can be socially broken. So we need to also change that mindset of our communities thinking violence is the answer. So then they feel people don't need to be accountable for reacting in that way. Where we be like, no, guys, from a human rights perspective, we have to pursue a rights-based approach to violence as well.
Well, Liezelle, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to that action plan.
Thank you very much. And just remember to just mention it through the media every time. You promised an action plan to be launched in October. And if we don't have one by October, what should we do as South Africa to push for them to start launching it? When we come back to accountability.
We appreciate you pointing that out. But for now, all the best to you, Liezelle. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Liezelle Kumalo joining us this morning. Mohammed, yes, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, and I do understand we are slightly behind time, but very quickly, something that's coming through, breaking news. All the accused in the 1992 demolition of the Babri Mosque in India have been acquitted by the special court this morning. The special CBI judge, Surendra Kumar Yadav, has delivered his verdict in the Babri Masjid this morning, acquitting all the accused in the 1992 demolition.
Wow. That obviously has come through as breaking news, and I'm sure we'll follow that up.
Certainly, we will keep a close eye and do a follow-up story.
Okay. Jazakallah for pointing that out.